What's up, guys? Welcome back to another daily Bible reading snapshot. Today we're finishing the book of Kings, this long book that describes so much history, all the way from the days of Solomon and the death of David, all the way through till the exile of the kingdom in the south, the kingdom of Judah. We're reading that ending today. And what we see is Josiah is this last good king who does a lot of good things. We see in chapter 23 today that he is doing awesome things like restoring right worship, like banishing bad worship, like getting rid of the idolatry, kind of like Hezekiah. But it says Josiah did it in such a way that was unique. It was like no one that came before him. It says that he does a Passover celebration again, a Passover like they haven't done since the days of Moses. That was amazing. It says in verse 28, though, Josiah goes wrong when he doesn't do the things that he should. Obviously, it's obvious with everyone. But it says that he says, I'm going to go fight against Pharaoh Necho, the king of Egypt. He says, I'm going to go fight him. Well, that didn't turn out well. It says he's killed. He's killed in battle. So he's only 39 years old. Remember, he was 8 years old when he began to reign. He's been reigning for 31 years. That's awesome. But he's killed in battle as a 38, 39-year-old guy here. And it says that he's brought back to the land and he is buried. Problem is now, you have a whole bunch of kings that are going to happen really fast. And it was like good, everything was good with Josiah. When he dies, immediately it's like boom, problem. So there's not going to be any more good kings. And because of that, total instability in Judah. So it says right after he dies, it says Jehoahaz was 23 years old, which makes sense, right? You had a 39-year-old dad, 23-year-old guy. He got married early on, had some kids. First kid, Jehoahaz, he's 23 years old. He only reigns for 3 months. Well, why is that? Well, it says here that the king of Egypt actually, and you can picture this, Egypt is down in the south. He's coming to fight an important battle up in the north. We believe that this is in 605 BC, very important date. It says that he goes up, and as he goes up, Josiah tries to stop him. Josiah gets killed in the process. He goes up, fights this battle, comes back down, so it's only 3 months later, and Necho comes through, and he removes Jehoahaz as being king. It says he's removed, and then a guy named Jehoiakim is put in his place. It says Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign. He reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem, but it says then Nebuchadnezzar, another important guy, he comes along, and he removes him. So there's all these king removals. Why is that? Well, it seems like Jehoahaz was not loyal to Egypt. He probably came in power for only 3 months, obviously. He's the son of Josiah. He's like the guy who's going to, keep fighting Egypt. Egypt says, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to remove you. We're going to put a guy who's more loyal to me, a guy named Jehoiakim, right? Then Jehoiakim reigns for a little while. But now, who is the superpower in the area? It's not Egypt anymore. Now it's Babylon. Now that Babylon's the most important, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to say, Jehoiakim, you're not very loyal to me. Yeah, you're going to be removed. We're going to put a guy named Jehoiachin. And then Jehoiachin is not very loyal. And then it says the next guy has Zedekiah. He's not very loyal either. So all these kings are semi-loyal. They have decent relationships with Babylon until they rebel. And it says that in the days of Jehoiachin, it says that we have Jerusalem that is taken for the first time, and these important people are carried off. It says 10,000 captives. And the king himself, Jehoiachin, he's carried off too. So bad times for them. It says Zedekiah is set up as king by Babylon, remember, by King Nebuchadnezzar. It says Zedekiah reigns for a little bit, reigns for 11 years, and then he rebels too. And he thinks he can take on Nebuchadnezzar, but he can't. He doesn't. And he is killed in the process. And he's taken off to Babylon. His eyes are put out. And he's taken and killed later on in Babylon. Dies in Babylon. But his sons, in fact, were killed right before his eyes. Then his eyes were taken out of him. Horrible time, where in chapter 25 you read the end of all this, where it says that Judah falls just like Israel. We remember reading about Israel falling back in chapter 17, but now even Judah falls. And this is a warning for all of us and a warning for Judah, right? You guys can fall too. It's not just the Israelites. It's not just the northern tribes. It's also the Judeans. And it says that they fell so hard. But even at the end, the guy Jehoiachin, one of those kings who was taken captive, he's in Babylon, but he's brought out. And he actually is able to sit at the king's table and eat his food. And there's a little hope at the end of all of that. It's the same hope that's given at the end of the book of Jeremiah. There's hope for the nation of Israel. Even though they're taken into exile, God still has a plan for them. And that's going to lead really well into our next book that we're going to read, the book of First Chronicles, which is all about the hope that God has for the people after exile. So remember the original audience. They were in the exile. They got this book. They were reminded of all the times that they disobeyed God. They were reminded of all the prayers of Solomon and Hezekiah when they turned to God and trusted in God, and that God delivered. And all the times also where God promises judgment through a variety of different people, and he keeps his promises. God keeps his good and his bad promises. He keeps his promises for good and his promises for judgment. And also, it gives hope at the end of this book that there is a plan still for Israel. There is a plan still for these Judeans, even though they were taken into exile. So that's our Old Testament reading today. That's the end of the book of 2 Kings. We're still in the book of John here. John chapter 7 says that Jesus was about to go up to a feast, but his brothers, which this is kind of what brothers do, they are going at each other. It says Jesus' brothers were mocking Jesus, saying, hey, why don't you just go up to the festival, tell everyone you're the Messiah, and everyone will worship you and follow you. And Jesus says, ha, ha, ha. No, I'm not going to do that, obviously. That's not my timing. That's not my plan. And it says that they went up without him. But Jesus comes up secretly up, by the way. They're in Galilee. They're in Jerusalem. Up is Jerusalem because Jerusalem is higher elevation. So they go up the hill to Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he begins to preach in verse 14. And he's telling these people that he has the authority of the Father, just like he said in John 5. He is the authority of God now. God has given him the authority to judge. He's given him all that authority. And he tells them, hey, don't be foolish here. You need to judge with the right judgment at the end of this. And then it says, some people begin to ask, is this really the Christ? Can this be the Christ? Is it really the Messiah? Don't we not know where the Messiah comes from? Which was an interesting myth that came up, that the Jews thought that they didn't know where Messiah was going to come from. Some debated, well, shouldn't he come from Bethlehem? This guy's from Galilee. But if we know the story, right, which we do from the book of Luke, we know that he was born in Bethlehem, just like the prophecy said, but he was raised in Galilee. He was a Nazarene. So all these interesting different opinions about Jesus show up. And it's kind of like today. There's so many different opinions about Jesus. The world is split over what they think about Christ. I just hope that you, as a reader of this gospel and someone who listens to these videos, I hope that you are not split about who you think Jesus is. As you read the Gospel of John, you see over and over again, Jesus proves his power. He proves who he is. He says it, and then he proves it with his work. And then he's ultimately going to prove it at the end by giving his life as a ransom for us. So don't be confused about who Jesus is. He is not confused. He does not want us to be as we read his word. So thanks for reading. We'll see you back tomorrow for another daily Bible reading snapshot.